Hi, so thank you all for being here tonight. So I'm going to talk a little bit about critical literacy and information literacy during an election cycle, kind of why it's important. I've done other little videos talking about critical literacy skills, but this will just be me talking about why those skills are important. So critical literacy versus information literacy, what is kind of the difference? So information literacy is kind of this overarching theme, and then critical literacy falls within it. So information literacy is kind of how we take ideas and put them into real-world solutions. Critical literacy is where we are learning to think critically about things or to make those opinions that will become real-world solutions. So what are the benefits of critical literacy? One of them is a deeper understanding of context. This means that when you're thinking critically, you're not just taking things at face value. You're kind of questioning the bias of things that are being put out and kind of why they're being put out. This is something, an example, is seeing a Facebook post. And you see an outrageous Facebook post, you're kind of looking at it like, I don't know. Some critical literacy skills you could use to kind of understand the context be to lateral read, which means kind of look across multiple sources of the same topic, see what they're saying, but also to look into your author's credentials, make sure they're even qualified to be an authority on the topic they are talking about. Recognize biases and assumptions. So this is going to make us once again question the perspectives of where information is coming from, try to find the hidden bias and assumptions within it. You want to look into those perspectives because you want to see who is feeding you the information and why you feel like they are. This is especially important during an election cycle because different campaigns are going to put out information. And so you need to know, okay, well, are they feeding me this from a place of bias? If so, is it truly factual? And you don't want your opinion to be swayed by something that isn't 100% correct. Empowerment and agency. So when we're talking about empowerment and agency, this is when it encourages you to be an active participant in the information you're receiving versus just being a passive consumer. Once again, you're going to try to understand the motives and intentions of your sources, which will help you make more informed decisions on how to interpret and respond to the information you're getting. This is important during an election cycle again because the more information you have, the more accurate information you have, the more of an informed vote you can make. Media literacy is a big one. So this will teach you how to evaluate your sources for credible and factual information. It also teaches you how to discern between factual information, misinformation, and disinformation. Disinformation and misinformation are sometimes used interchangeably, but there is a difference. So when you're talking about misinformation, this is something that is given out that isn't correct, but it might not have been given out with the intention of that. So for example, you see a Facebook post, you like it, you share it, you didn't check it. Well, it turns out that information was false. You weren't trying to mislead people, you just didn't check your sources. Disinformation, however, is put out to deliberately deceive people. So this, will come especially in the forms of like different propaganda, things like that. It is important during an election cycle to realize these things because that is what's going to help you once again make that more informed decision. You're not making it based off something that wasn't true. So cultivate empathy. So critical literacy calls for us to promote respect for diverse cultures, to foster inclusivity, and to dismantle stereotypes. This is incredibly important during an election cycle because you want to look at the political platforms and what they are using to kind of fan the flames, so to speak. So a good example of this is a party who is using Build the Border Wall as one of their platforms. There's talk about, these are people who are coming here who are criminals, who are drug dealers, who are not good guys, and they are using stereotypes to build their platform. However, what we want to do is look at those, dismantle them, look at people as people, and then kind of decide from there, okay, is this an issue we feel comfortable supporting, or is it one we should think a little more critically about when we are voting in November? Cultural awareness. So this is seeing things from multiple viewpoints and listening to different voices when you are doing research. This can promote more meaningful conversations and kind of expand your knowledge. This is really helpful during an election cycle when you are looking at things like legislation. So there could be a piece of legislation coming out that doesn't affect you personally. However, if you talk to someone from a different background, a different experience, you can see how it could affect them. It could affect them negatively. So that is something to keep in mind when you are researching your candidates and selecting your candidates, to be like, okay, this is something they are supporting, they are backing, they are promoting. Am I comfortable knowing my background and knowing the background of someone else supporting this person who supports this platform or legislation? Enhancing communication skills. So critical literacy kind of makes us think about how our words and our messages are going to be perceived by others. This allows us to go into conversations based more on factual knowledge, which could lead to people being a little more receptive of what you're saying and a little less defensive, because it's more based on facts versus emotions and opinions. Then again, those opinions or those facts could make someone defensive, but we're kind of hoping for the opposite. It also, since it's enhancing your communication skills, helps you to have those conversations during an election cycle that are important. So helping educate your friends and family on the issues, on legislation, on what's going on different candidates. But also, you can teach them how to use their critical literacy skills to find credible sources, to look for better information, things like that. Active citizenship. This is kind of what it's all about. So critical literacy calls us to be more engaged. It is all about being an engaged citizen, all about promoting socioeconomic empowerment and social justice, and it teaches us how to evaluate policies and legislation, which is really important during an election cycle, because you're going to look once again at what candidates are supporting, what they're promoting, and it's also great to have these skills, because whenever you have learned how to look more in depth into legislation and policies, you can then decide how you want to take action. If you want to write to your legislators, if you want to show up and lobby at meetings. So critical literacy is important in that way as well. Personal growth. So critical literacy, again, causes us to be more intellectual, and it helps our development in that. It sparks a natural curiosity, which does get you more involved and get you looking for more information. And you looking for more information, great during the election cycle, because once again, you're going to be a more informed voter. So the main takeaways from this is critical literacy is going to help us figure out who we are voting for and why we are voting for them. It is very, very important to know who you are voting for and what they stand for, because you want to vote for the candidate who most likely reflects your beliefs and your values and what you would like to see them do, versus someone who doesn't necessarily meet those standards that you were setting. Why you should vote? Well, because of that. You want to vote for that candidate who reflects you, who reflects what you want to be dealt with while they're in office, things you want to see change happen. The thing about voting is that whenever we don't vote, whenever we don't make our voice heard, we relinquish our power. And it could allow someone who doesn't reflect our morals, values, and ideas into office. It could elect someone who potentially has extremist views into office. We're kind of looking at that right now. I'm speaking to a group of, educator union members. And so, looking at North Carolina's race, the future of public schools is on the ballot. And so when you're looking at your candidates, you really have to look at the issues that they are speaking on and decide, okay, can I support this person, or is this other person going to be better for the public school system? Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes.
Do you think we're getting better or worse at critical literacy?
I think that we are getting worse at it. I think we're getting worse at critical literacy because things like Facebook, it is so easy to see something and just go ahead and hit share, especially if it's something that agrees with something that you already have a bias about. So I think it's a really, really important skill. They say every election is important, this one is really important. And so it is really important that we kind of spread the tools of critical literacy to everyone we know, so they can look at that Facebook post and go, you know what? I don't know about that. Let me use this skill of lateral reading and check across other sources before I share it. Let me look into my author's credentials before I share it. I really don't think as a society we're doing a great job of that right now. I think, everybody's guilty of being like, oh, this aligns with my values, click. So I'm hoping that with this project I'm doing and with some of the videos I'm making, I can at least reach out to a few people, encourage them to look at things more critically, and then maybe them encourage others to look at things more critically, because we're really not doing a good job. Any more questions for me? Cool, well, thank you so much for being here, and y'all have a great night.